Well, hello, I'm Prophet Teresa Lusk, and I am the lead pastor of Beyond Freedom Church, and I want to talk to you about something very important today, the 2024 election. Now, before you just say, oh, I don't want to hear about this, and I'm ready to turn this off, and I'm done with politics, I would like to invite you to ask the Lord to give you the grace to listen in. This is an important message that I'm bringing to you, and I want to share as much as possible, some objective thoughts for you to consider. Number one, for most of you who say that you do not want to get politically involved, can I tell you that you have been given dominion over the earth? And that means that God has entrusted to you what happens as much as you can. In other words, it is our responsibility to understand what's going on in our land, what's going on with our government, what's going on with our schools, with the medical system, what's going on with immigration. There are so many pieces involved in this election, and it is probably one of the most intense there ever has been. I would have thought that prior years were bad, but this election year, this 2024, has proven to be possibly the most divisive one this far. Unfortunately, we have two candidates who weren't necessarily looked upon with the best view. If we're honest, President or former President Donald J. Trump has been criticized by many, including conservatives and those of the faith community. A lot of people do not like the way that he deals with people, the way he communicates, the way that he has responded to people publicly. Now, as a believer, I understand the concerns that people might have. I understand why people would look down on those things. On a separate note, I also saw such an increase of such a politically correct spirit hitting America. When former President Barack Obama was in the White House, there was an increase of sensitivity to how people received a thing. And then we began to measure everything by how nicely we could say something. Then it began to distract us from the things that were really important, because if I can focus on a man who is being rude and disrespectful and obnoxious, then I can completely disregard the things that are really going on. I have my own personal opinions, but this is not for the sake of you believing or falling into what I believe. I want to talk to you objectively. So you look at these two candidates. We have Vice President Kamala Harris, and nobody really wanted her to take any certain high-level position necessarily outside of what she was already doing, although Vice President's a pretty high position. But whatever activity she was doing, according to some groups, did not seem to be like much. Well, people were a little hopeless when we had President Joe Biden as the once again candidate, being that his cognitive abilities were suffering. So then here we go. We put they push in Kamala Harris, and this is now your choice, her and former President Trump. The problem is that as believers, and really as Americans, forget just the believers, we've learned to look at the things that are popular. We're driven by popular opinion. We're driven by culture. Some people are driven by TikTok and other social media platforms. And I want to teach you to think for yourself. I want to teach you to look at policies. You know, when President Trump, before he was President Trump, when he was just candidate Trump, I didn't really want to vote for him. Matter of fact, I didn't. I voted for a different candidate during the election time, where you could say, hey, this is going to be my selection and I'm sticking with it. But then he won. Once he won, I had to look at different policies based on what is being offered to me from the Democrat Party and what is being offered to me from the Republican Party. So if you look at what your options are today, here is what I want to share with you, okay? And these are, by the way, I got these from AI so that you can see. I don't know if you guys understand this, but AI is extremely what I would call liberal and woke. Most of the information that they provide for you is usually from a very liberal perspective. And that's why I used it, because that way There isn't a leaning of my own personal view and saying, hey, this is what you want. I want to show you what the differences are. So if you're looking at the economy and taxes, and you look at President Trump's policy, he would likely, this is what it says, he would likely emphasize cuts and deregulation. He would likely aim to lower corporate taxes, cut back regulation on businesses, and promote policies that favor job creation through the private sector. His approach typically focuses on boosting American industries through trade protectionism and domestic investment. So when you look at that, a lot of people, especially conservative people on the right, believe that if you cut the corporate taxes, it allows for more job creation. Why? Because the corporations now have more money to invest in employees. I want to say this. You can see it both ways. You can look at it both ways and go, well, those greedy, corporations. You can say that, but I have a question for you as well. Do you wake up to work for free? If somebody said to you, I'm going to pay you twice as much today as you're making, I'm going to start paying you that tomorrow, would that be greed? See, a lot of times we misconstrue the financial success of organizations because we don't believe that we would be financially successful. That's one way to look at it. The other way, if you're looking at VP Harris, and I'm going to call her Candidate Harris because that's really what she is at this moment, here's what it says about her. Would likely push for higher taxes on the wealthy and corporations to fund social programs. Her policy might emphasize economic equity, support for labor unions, and tax breaks, or credits aimed at the middle class. So the truth is that both whatever President Trump and VP Harris would do, they would both create some breaks for the middle class. But she is interested in causing higher tax rates for those who are more financially successful so that it can fund social programs. Now, if you're a Christian, you understand that social programs are important. As a church, we understand that the way that we give or the outreaches that we do or where we put money is important. There's nothing wrong with wanting to support. It is our duty as Christians to be sure that we are supporting those around us who are less fortunate. The issue that some people might have with her policy is that she is taxing so high that she's going to start destroying the corporations which actually keep America going. Think about this. If you close down corporations today, if you're taxing them so high that they begin to go to other nations to run their business, what do you have for Americans to do? That's just a question you can ask yourself as you evaluate these policies. Number two, I want to talk about healthcare, and I'm going to talk about that pretty fast. Trump may continue advocating for repealing or significantly altering the Affordable Care Act, which is called the Obamacare, focusing on reducing government intervention in healthcare and promoting private market solutions. So President Trump did not care for the Affordable Care Act when it was put in place by Obama. It's a program that seems to have helped a lot of people who are lower income, which is great. Everybody needs a little help. The problem is that while it helped a lot of people who are lower income, it hurt a lot of people who are middle income. Not even the wealthy people, because the wealthy people can support their own, they can buy their own insurance outright, and insurance rates are out the roof. But when you talk about the middle class, people who possibly don't make more than $400,000 a year or so, maybe $60,000 a year, $60,000 to $400,000, they suffered very much so through this option. So while you're trying to help one group of people, you hurt another. So who decides who's most important? Most people think, well, you already have a job, so therefore, not really. I think it actually pulls everybody down into the same level, which guess what? That is the liberal way. They want everybody to be 100% equal on everything. The truth is, that's not always possible. Not everybody puts in the same effort, the same amount of money, the same commitment to education, and some people really are. They really do have a hard start. those are the people that need the help. So that's something to think about. So I'm trying to give you the back and forth between the two. Next is immigration. Trump's focus would likely be on strict immigration policies, including border security, building the wall, and limiting immigration, and I will say illegal immigration, especially through asylum or family sponsorship. We have a crisis going on right now. I live in Texas. I am just 30 minutes outside of Dallas, Texas. And I can tell you that the stories of what's happening right now, even including with the Venezuelan gangs and some of the things that are going on because of the surge in illegal immigration, is very concerning. So there are a lot of people will say that they contribute that to Kamala Harris and Biden because they are the ones who did not put the restrictions. Then you hear the argument that the bill was killed to enforce stricter policies. Then you hear the other argument that that President Biden could have actually just signed off and we would have had a resolve with the immigration crisis. I personally spoke and interviewed a gentleman who actually runs the National Immigration Council. I believe it's what it's called. It's been a little bit. And he testified himself about the current administration, which is the Biden-Harris administration, and the way that they have intruded and not allowed the laws of the land to really take place so that we can be safe from the harmful illegal immigration. Not everybody who's coming into our country is here to harm our country. I think anybody with some common sense knows that. But it is important that as a surge occurs, now we have to find a way, how do we protect our nation? So that's one of the arguments. So here's what Harris would likely do. VP Harris would likely support immigration reform that includes pathways to citizenship for undocumented immigrants, protecting DACA recipients, and addressing issues like refugee resettlement with a more humanitarian approach. I would like to say that there are a lot of people who don't support VP Harris's immigration thoughts. However, they do care about the humanitarian piece of it. There are people that I know of personally who are very politically involved. They're Christians, they're strong conservatives, but they also extend the humanitarian hand. They absolutely do. So VP Harris would like to give a lot more leniency to those who are coming here illegally. Some people would say that's great. Why are we keeping people out? One of my explanations to that is, well, why don't you leave your door unlocked? And then when people come in, make them at home. See, these are things that we have to decide on. In the same token, we also have to understand that we're not supposed to be trying to harm people either. So there's a very kind of, very fine line there. So understand, you have to think about your country. Do you believe that America in 2024, where we have been so affected by the inflation that we have seen, by the way that our current administration has not seemingly done everything that they can via policy to protect our nation and protect keep this nation from the inflation level that we're at. You just have to ask these questions. Ask yourself these questions. What are you seeing? What is the evidence? And then you can make up your own mind. And then I'm going to talk about foreign policy. Trump would like to continue possibly his America First agenda, emphasizing reduced foreign entanglements, focusing on trade deals that favor American workers, and pressuring NATO allies to contribute more to their own defense. President Trump, even from his last term, he just seemingly has really believed in other nations rising up to their own occasion and protecting themselves. There comes a time, and that's the whole slogan that he uses, the whole America First and make America great again. Some of that has to do with how much other nations depend on America. I'm all for I think it's important to help other nations, but how much? When do we stop? How much is too much? VP Harris would like to continue to focus on materialism and rebuilding alliances. Her administration might prioritize working with international organizations like NATO and the UN, as well as taking stronger stance on human rights and climate change in global relations. So, it sounds fine. It sounds like something that would be useful to do. But also it costs America money when America is involved with other nations in that manner. I always think that there's great ways to accomplish both things. But in this one, you're just going to have to think for yourself and decide. And then, of course, climate change. Trump would focus on boosting traditional energy industries like coal, oil, gas, while rolling back regulations that limit carbon emissions, while VP Harris would like to push for aggressive climate action, possibly backing more investment in clean energy and green technologies. So let me tell you this, the conservative view of that is that the earth was made for us. We weren't made for the earth. And so God gave us the earth. He gave us dominion over the earth. He told us to be fruitful, to multiply, and he told us that we would be blessed here. And so some people have this idea that we have to succumb to the earth, and I actually think it's important for us to take care of our earth. I do. But also, we can't put such restrictions either. When you're trying to take care of the earth, now you're taking away other resources. And that's the unfortunate thing, that both of these things, to some degree, I believe, mean well. What VP Harris is pushing and what former President Trump is pushing, unfortunately, one harms the other. And in our economy today, it might be very harmful to keep pushing for these high climate action that's taking away a lot of resources that we might need. So it's costing more in other areas. And then two last things that I want to leave you with is Trump would likely lean towards conservative social values, supporting policies that limit abortion. Of course, ChatGPT calls it abortion rights, that it limits abortion rights. And that depends on how you see it. Is it an abortion right, or is it something that's immoral, right? So depending on which way you see it. And VP Harris would likely advocate for the protection and expansion of abortion rights and LGBTQ rights and stronger gun control laws. So some of you are going to have to decide. There's two views on this. Some people say, I believe in God strongly, but I also believe he gave us free will. So we should get to choose what we're going to do with ourselves, regardless of what that means, whether I want to get 30 tattoos and have 6 abortions per year, or whatever I want to do. And other people will say, well, I highly believe in God, but when you're pregnant, that's a life, and that life did not choose to come into the earth. You don't get to take that life. So you see, there's varying degrees of things. This is why it's important to know, as Christians, as believers, what does the Bible say? What does the Bible really say? And careful with the interpretations. If I'm just going to be honest, as a pastor, I can tell you this, that most people are going to look for an interpretation that prefers their view of something already. But you cannot remake a story. Like, if the Bible already says something, you cannot adjust it. It says what it says, right? So at the end of the day, you're just going to have to choose. Do I believe that this is okay or not? The question here that a lot of people clash in is, if you're a believer and you're a Bible believing believer, Christian, how can you vote for somebody who so strongly promotes what a Christian who subscribes to the Bible, everything that the Bible says? How do you then vote for somebody who subscribes to sin, to promote it? And then the people who are supportive of people such as VP Harris and her views, and they call themselves Christians, they say, well, how can you support a man who is so mean and rude and wicked? And here is where I think we all have to understand. Neither one of them are running for pastor of the United States. Neither one of them. They are both just running to run this country. All I say is, look at the evidence. I care about moral issues and I care about the economy and safety of our country. What do you care about? We will have to answer for this. We will have to. And we will answer for believing the media, because every media outlet has their own opinion. Whether you're looking at Fox News, CNN, Newsmax, MSNBC, if you pay attention to both, which I highly recommend that you go and you click on each one of these networks that I just spoke about just right now, and look at their way of communicating to you their hate and their disdain one for the other. And really, it's supposed to be for the policies, but it's become a very personal issue. I want to tell you that we will be responsible for allowing people to mislead us. It is your job to look at as many avenues as possible. And the reason why I say that is because if I pick up my phone right now and do some research on something, I am most likely going to get a very liberal perspective on a policy. But it's also true that if I go to a conservative network, that they're going to give me their very strong right-wing opinion. So at the end of the day, I'm responsible for making up my mind. God gave me his word, and he gave me a mind, and he gave me wisdom, and he gave me understanding. Now, this message is so very important, and this is a call to action to every Christian. Look up the scriptures. Don't tell them to tell you what to say. Look at them and say, what does the Bible say about blank, whatever that issue is? And do more than one research. Don't be like the people that take the two scriptures and go, oh, there you go. The truth is, even this happens with women preachers, right? This is how people can disqualify women preachers. They say, oh, you saw those two scriptures? They talk about women not speaking in church, and they talk about women shouldn't preach and women shouldn't speak. And then you look at the rest of the Bible with evidence all over the place for women preachers. So you have to be able to really look at the Bible. This election of 2024 is not just about a presidential election. It is about pushing back those policies that open the door for more tolerance and acceptability of immoral practices. But you're going to have to make your own decision. This will be the America that you live in. This is the America that your children and your grandchildren will live in. Since when do we have to reject what God says because people say? It's time for us Americans, especially the Bible-believing Americans, to stand up, go register to vote, do your research. Don't let your emotion get in the way. Let your logic think for you along with the Word of God. Ask the Lord to really show you what you're supposed to do through this election. I'm Pastor Teresa Lusk. I love you, and I can't wait to see you move to action for the sake of our nation. God bless.